Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
I did the story a couple days ago about the priest who was doing the baptisms wrong, and he changed one word over a long period of time, and the church came out and said, technically speaking, those baptisms are incorrect and must be redone. And I simply told the story because it's in the news, and I found it interesting. And I said, obviously the church can do anything it wants. That's how these things are. And a lot of people sent me notes trying to explain it to me further, but I understand what happened. I understand the rationale behind it. That's not the problem. But the interesting thing is that this does happen in other venues. And in fact, several people sent me a story out of Michigan where a priest who apparently something had been done wrong in the ceremony where they made him a priest, therefore it rendered everything that he touched later to be null and void. And so that's, another problem. But this is a story that both Mal and Will sent me. But out of Australia, more than 1,000 Victoria police officers wrongly sworn in after administrative bungle. From 7news.com.au out of Australia, Emily Woods wrote it. More than 1,000 Victorian police officers have been wrongly sworn in over the past 8 years due to an administrative bungle, casting doubt on thousands of matters handled by the police. Chief Commissioner Shane Patton on Thursday said he's recently given legal advice informing him of a legislative error in the Victoria Police Act. The error means that from July of 2014 until August of last year, deputy police commissioners were appointing acting assistant commissioners without the required powers. Those acting assistant commissioners then swore in a number of recent police officer graduates. However, under changes to the Victoria Police Act in 2013, acting assistant commissioners needed to be appointed by the chief police commissioner or a deputy commissioner who had been delegated the authority. Due to the error, over 1,000 officers, 157 protective service officers, and 29 police custody officers have been wrongly sworn in by acting assistant commissioners. The mistake could mean that police officers have been making arrests and issuing charges without the power to do so. And so if the law says that to become a police officer, you got to do all this stuff, pass all these tests, and then get sworn in, well, if the swearing in isn't valid, then is that person a police officer, or what powers do they have as a police officer? Affected police members are being contacted now, with Victoria Police saying they are moving to urgently swear in these officers again over the coming days and weeks. Patton said officers would have to be sworn in again before they can perform their police duties, with 660 to be resworn this week. And he said this is an oversight. It's an administrative oversight. It has some significant consequences for a short period of time, he said. The Victorian government is moving to urgently amend the legislation to fix the error, with the law to be introduced next week. A police minister said the new laws would be retrospective to rectify all previous decisions, including arrests and charges issued by wrongly sworn-in police officers. So they're going to fix the law, and the new law is going to say, by the way, officers sworn in now had the ability to do this in the past. The question is whether that'll work or not. We don't know. We've got to get this right. It will rectify all that, and all these matters will be, all those matters will stand, as she said. Now someone in the meantime might try to contest, but with the support of the opposition, we'll get this through very quickly, and it won't really be an opportunity for people to have any matters overturned. So the police are saying it's not a problem. We can fix it now, and it'll go work backwards. Patton said it was a case-by-case analysis as to whether people could contest arrests or charges by unsworn police officers. If someone wants to contest a matter, we would adjourn it and step through and analyze the specifics of that. It may be that an officer who comes within the scope of it is with another police officer who is not so affected, and therefore the arrest may be totally valid. There's a whole range of scenarios, and keep in mind that that's often the case, that there's a bunch of police officers at the scene, and if some of them weren't sworn in and some of them were, well, might not be that big of a deal. However, one police officer who witnesses the crime, nabs a suspect, makes the arrest, and books the person into the jail, that might be a problem. Neville said there were checks and balances in place for some cases. For example, family violence safety notices had to be approved by a sergeant so they would still be valid. Meanwhile, the opposition police spokesperson, Brad Batten, said the coalition will support the laws if they were solely designed to fix this error and protect Victoria police. If they put forward a piece of legislation which is just designed to retrospectively protect the police here in the state, we will support it. If the government put on anything else in there, we'll have that discussion with them. So don't try tacking stuff on here. They always do that, apparently in every country. The Police Association of Victoria said it would support members affected by the error and ensure their legal and industrial rights were protected. IBAC and the Director of Public Prosecution have been notified about all of this. But again, about 1,000, little over 1,000 police officers in Victoria not sworn in properly. And this goes back a ways. And so it might be that some of these officers not being sworn in properly, technically speaking, aren't police officers in the truest sense of the word. Now, you might say, Steve, what if that happened in America? And it's going to depend on what the legislation each state says regarding, who is a police officer and what do they do. But keep in mind that quite often in court, police officers are merely witnesses. Merely witnesses. Now, not all of them, but I'm saying a lot of times simply a police officer brought in, put on the stand, and asked to testify as to what they saw. And so on cross-examination, if you said, by the way, isn't it true you were not sworn in properly? Yes, that's true. But I got sworn in a little while later. Okay. I mean, you could bring that up, but the question is, what would it do? Now, I guess what you'd probably be more looking to do is if you wanted to, at an earlier stage of the case, as the case is being sent through the trial process, you would argue and say that the entire case is wrong. It's all out of order. Everything's out of order. And it's out of order because the arrest was made by an unsworn police officer. So I've never heard of this happening here in the U.S., and I'm not sure how formal the requirements are. And keep in mind, and a lot of people in other countries are kind of amused by this, but in America, it's not uncommon that you've got several police jurisdictions overlapping. So if you are standing on Woodward Avenue during the Woodward Dream Cruise in Royal Oak, Michigan, you will see Royal Oak police officers. You'll see Oakland County Sheriff's deputies because Royal Oak is within Oakland County. You'll see Michigan State police officers who also have jurisdiction because Royal Oak is in the county of Oakland, which is in the state of Michigan. So there's 3 state police agencies that overlap each other, and they have different jurisdictions with respect to what they investigate. But it's possible to be arrested by any one of those 3 when you're in the state of Michigan if you've done something wrong. Just depends on whose radar you got on. And then you should be aware of the fact that, of course, there's federal agents, and they operate throughout the entire United States, and they have slightly different jurisdictions also. So you might have federal marshals, you might have the FBI, you might have ATF. You've got these different agencies that oversee stuff and have police powers. So if someone gets arrested in America, it could be by any one of a whole host of different agencies. And each one of them is going to have its own rules on stuff like this. But most of the time, somewhere along the line, after they've been trained and before they've gone on the job, they would be sworn to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the agency they work for and so on. And so I've never heard of this, especially not in this wide scale. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the fallout of this in Australia. Because let's suppose, like I said, you were that one person. An officer saw you do something with no other witnesses. Officer arrests you, books you, takes you in, does the entire thing himself. It's a one-man show. And that officer was not properly sworn in a while back. Will that affect that case? And so that'll be interesting to see. So Mal and Will both sent it. Emily Woods wrote it for 7news.com.au. More than 1,000 Victoria police officers wrongly sworn in after administrative bungle. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler.